Do you know, at one point in history, ultramarine blue was worth more than gold? Or that green, the color most associated with life and vitality, was so toxic that producing it took the lives of countless miners and artists. How about this one? Bone white is made from bones. From rare and toxic materials to wild alchemy, the history of paintmaking is really interesting. And throughout that history, the burden of making paint really fell on the artist to find a color they liked, make it, not die during the process. We take all that for granted because we can go to the store and choose any color we like and get to painting. But somebody still has to make those paints. And today, we're going to meet those somebodies. I'm Julian Baumgartner. As a fine art conservator over the past 2 decades working to preserve artworks, I've been fortunate enough to meet and work with some of the most talented, driven, and interesting people in the arts. And now I want to take you into their worlds, to meet them, hear their stories, and share their passions. So join me as we go behind the canvas. Welcome to the vibrant city of Portland, a place where culture is as diverse as the people who call it home. Nestled in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, this city stands unique amongst others, seamlessly blending nature, urban living, and industry. Today, we'll be visiting a local fixture that embodies Portland's passion for creativity, Gamblin Artist Colors. I had the pleasure of meeting Pete Cole, the owner and president of Gamblin, who graciously offered to share his insights on the craftsmanship and dedication that go into creating some of the most vital materials an artist uses. So these are the pigments. This is where paint starts. Everything begins here. But I mean, what's in these bags?
Pigment comes to us in a powder form, and we're sourcing pigment from all over the world, looking for the absolute best that we can possibly buy. We source pigments from a mountainous region of Italy, believe it or not, that cool. Makes the best transparent earth colors that we can find.
So you're really on the hunt for the best quality pigments, because you have, I'm assuming, a very specific set of requirements to make good paint.
Correct, and we have a very specific grind we're looking for on certain colors, a particle size, light fastness. They're incredibly powerful. No other painting media has the same power of communication as oil.
Right.
And they're also really raw. And I used to talk to artists and give tours, and I'd say, all these pigments are like elements on the periodic table. We're working with iron, we're working with zinc, we're working with cobalt, and these are the building blocks of life.
Yeah, they're the basic
Earth.
elements.
It doesn't get any more real.
I'm presuming that when you're working with cobalt, it's not highly toxic, naturally mined cobalt.
The pigments we're working with are the same pigments that someone making watercolor is working with, or acrylic. As a color house, we began with Robert's commitment to make things true to historic working properties, but safer and more permanent. As far as pigments themselves, your earth colors are basically rocks.
Right.
They're mined rocks. You mine sienna, you burn it in an oven, burnt sienna.
Right.
And then your modern pigments, which are all the ones that are hard to say, haunces, phthalos,
right.
quinacridones, dioxazine, those are all carbon-based colors rather than mined or made from metal. These are actually controlled at a molecular level in a lab environment.
I bet that most artists, when they're in the throes of painting in their studios, aren't thinking that their artwork is dependent upon adding a molecule or removing one to change the color.
Right.
It's like a crazy journey from mineral or lab to canvas. It's remarkable, and it's just in these bags. After scouring the earth to source the finest colors, ranging from the rich, earthy tones of natural ochres and siennas to the vivid brilliance of synthetic quinacridones and phthalos, these diverse and exceptional pigments come together to form the unique range of paints that Gamblin produces. In order to transform these raw and elemental pigments into the lush, buttery oil paints that artists cherish and adore, they must be precisely married with linseed oil, and it all takes place right here in the heart of Gamblin's mixing room. What is this? This looks like brown.
This is Van Dyke Brown, and this has about 20 more minutes to go. In the process of developing color, we're using heat, force, and time in different measures for each pigment. This machine creates force. There's a shearing effect. That friction produces heat. The heat makes the oil thinner. It makes the pigment able to open up and absorb it. And this traveler follows this batch from where it begins in raw materials all the way through till it's done. Every single batch will have handwritten notes. Maybe the mix time was a little bit different, or maybe Matt makes an adjustment in the mill to get the transparency exactly right. All that's documented. Every batch is tested before it leaves the building, and every batch is archived 15 years back. If you tell me the date stamp on a tube, I can tell you who made it, I can tell you what time they made it, I can tell you the viscosity at the mill, I can show you the color match.
So the Traveler is the birth certificate, the genealogy, the photo album. This is it. This is everything about this paint, and it's particular to this paint, this batch, for quality control, history reasons. Is this unique to Gamblin?
I think so. Even though the raw materials may vary, through this process, we can consistently deliver what they expect to their palate. And for the working artist, it's tremendously important.
You said this has to keep mixing for a little bit, but when it's done, where is this paint gonna go? Because this is now ready. Like this is paint for the tube.
Maybe good enough for you, but it's not good enough for us. So there's one more step in the process, which is passing the color through our 3-roll mill.
For Gamblin, making a consistent color time and time again is of paramount importance. Here in the mixing room, artisans like Mike skillfully blend raw pigments with the finest linseed oil available, achieving the ideal balance of color, consistency, and durability. He ensures that this batch of Van Dyke Brown is identical to the previous one, which was the same as those from months or even years ago. And yes, they have all of the tests to prove it. This meticulous process ensures that each and every tube of Gamblin paint meets the highest standards of quality and consistency that artists have come to expect and rely on. But merely mixing pigment and oil does not result in paint. It must be further refined and processed at the mill under the close supervision and watchful eye of a master craftsman.
We talked earlier about using heat, force, and time. Matt is using all 3 of those tools to hit exactly what the color should look like, what it should feel like, what it should be in mass tone, what it should be in transparency, and every bit of paint is being watched by him. Every bit of paint that goes out passes through Matt's hands.
He's a pretty important guy, huh?
Yeah.
So, Matt, I understand that you're the man over here.
That's what they tell me.
Pete was telling me that this mill is where you get to really control kind of every aspect of what the paint looks like. And it looks like you are doing all sorts of stuff all at once.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm looking at the bead on this is called the feed side over there, and this is the apron side of the mill.
Yep.
And so I can tell by the texture of the paint if the pressure is right. And so I'll increase it or decrease it accordingly to make sure it's coming out the way that I want. They call this the nip, where the paint sits. And sometimes the hydraulics will push out a little bit, so I'll increase the pressure to make sure that the conglomerates are getting distributed correctly and crushed to the extent they need to be.
And so is this all stuff that you just kind of learned how to do?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I did not know coming in, but you know, now I guess 10 years in, it's pretty second nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
You maybe want to put some paint on here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So this is really thick. I mean,
it's fairly thick.
This is
some
like
of them go in thick and come out like a lot more reasonable consistency. Flip it upside down. In theory, at least you need the part with the most paint on it to go onto the mill. So you kind of got to get it on the thing and then flip it over as you put it on. Yeah, that's fine. And just flip it over 180 and like pull it back off the mill. Like so, just put it on the middle. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful.
So how long would it take you to go through a complete bucket?
So each batch generally takes about 15 to 20 minutes.
All right.
Yeah. So there's 3 of them. It takes, 40 to 50 minutes.
40 to 50 minutes, and you'll get how many tubes of paint you think come out of this?
We're doing 37s with this one, so 1,500 tubes approximately.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot of paintings. Do you ever think about where this paint is going to end up?
I do sometimes, and it's kind of rewarding or gratifying to hear that people like Gamblin paint quite a bit, and it has a really good reputation, and we have a really good team.
Look at that, I'm already getting covered in paint. Yeah.
I thought about gloves, but by the time you started doing it, I had already.
It was all hope was lost.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, your gloves are spotless. I could eat off of them.
They're pretty good yet.
Gamblin's master color makers possess a remarkable ability to expertly navigate the complexities of the mixing process. Their mastery encompasses the ever-changing nature of materials and the subtle way they react to heat and pressure on the mill. Matt's expertise is evident as he moves gracefully and with purpose, while I struggled to maintain a consistent supply of paint to the mill and off my clothes. Throughout the process, he diligently checks the paint and runs tests to ensure that this batch of ultramarine blue is identical to those that have come before. Once the mixing process is complete, the paint moves on to the packaging stage. Whether it's a 37 milliliter tube, 150 milliliter tube, or a massive 32-ounce can, all of the processing and packaging is done here in-house at the factory to ensure quality control. Throughout the year, this family of 30 people produces tens of thousands of tubes of paint. Thankfully, parts of this process can be automated. However, when it comes to certain products and steps, Gamblin still does it the old-fashioned way, under the skilled hands and watchful eye of craftspeople. Perhaps sensing my willingness to work for free, Gamblin was kind enough to let me participate, offering me once again the chance to be at the genesis of the materials that will encompass the future's masterpieces.
Okay, you got to be on point to do this. Yeah, okay, I was definitely not prepared for the speed.
Do you want me to slow down?
No, you're good, you're good. I'll pick it up. So Josh, are you an artist?
I am, yeah.
Yeah? You paint?
I do.
With Gamblin?
Yes.
On brand. I would imagine, and maybe I'm projecting here, that there's got to be some sort of like cool karmic synergy in making the paint and then using the paint.
Yeah, it definitely is. Especially going into stores. Like I look at all the paint, like no matter where I go, I'm like, yeah, one of us filled that paint.
Yeah. So these are warm. Does that have any effect on how they go into the tube?
We warm the paint up for a lot of the thicker paints.
Right.
So that they can kind of get through these old machines.
I think Pete was telling me that this machine was once used to put toothpaste into a tube.
I mean, that's what we think. These machines are really old, so.
All right, so I've reached that box. We're still good?
Yep.
Okay.
We're gonna do a midway on this.
What's a midway?
After 2 boxes, I'm gonna shut the machine off. We're gonna go back in here and just scrape down the paint.
Gotcha.
To get all that extra stuff on the side down.
So that's compressed air. Is that to help force it down?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So there's a plate, an actual, you call it a Fowler plate?
Yeah, Fowler plate.
So that sits on and just compresses. There it is.
Yep.
I see. Right, so it's not just gravity. You're forcing it into the machine, which is then, right, so because you don't want air bubbles or pockets. I'd imagine that an air bubble creates a big mess.
Yeah, it can. It can get up all in the tube. And if it gets up there, then it's gonna get on every single tube.
Oh, right. Yeah, then that's probably a bad day.
Yeah.
As the orchestrated symphony of the paint packaging process unfolds, it becomes clear to me that this intricate dance requires constant vigilance and expertise. The mesmerizing routine is carried out with the utmost care as the dedicated hands of the Gamblin family ensure that the fruits of their labor are safely deposited, crimped, and sealed in their final containers. These slim aluminum casings belie the immense potential they hold, a stark contrast to the vibrant hues and tireless dedication of the individuals who have crafted the contents. At the factory, the packaging process involves not only the 150 unique colors that Gamblin creates, but also their range of synthetic oils, painting mediums, and varnishes, which are vital components of an artist's toolkit. Gamblin's expertise extends to these products as well, ensuring the same trusted experience and quality across their entire product lineup.
So Pete, there are a lot of paint colors here. Do you guys make colors?
We don't develop pigment, but we're almost always the first color house in the world to get our hands on any new pigment that might come available and be meaningful and useful to artists.
Right. So we saw blue being made, and I do know that, what was it, like maybe 10 or 12 years ago, just down the street at Oregon University, some scientists accidentally invented a new blue.
Yemen blue. That's exactly right. So watercolorists often talk about the happy accident, and scientists have happy accidents as well, and Yemen blue is one of them. It is kind of a special color. It's a lot like cobalt, but it's different in a few subtle ways. And we were the first color house to make any paint with Yemen blue.
Oh, really? Wow.
We did, and the amazing thing is the scientist who leads that team, his wife is a painter. She's an oil painter, and she uses our paint. And he never got her a tube of paint. I think he was just too busy. So she called us, and obviously we took care of her.
Yeah,
but
that's really
it's
cool.
An interesting color.
Yeah, so when a new pigment is synthesized or made, you guys have your finger in the wind, ready to capture that and turn it into an artist's paint.
Correct, and what we're really looking for is not another pigment I can sell you. I don't want to create some pigment that's not useful to you or meaningful to you, so it has to create a compelling new possibility for artists to earn a place on my palette. Otherwise, it's out.
Gamblin Artist Colors has always been at the forefront of innovation, continually seeking out unique and groundbreaking pigments to expand their range of colors. Of particular note is Gamblin's collection of reclaimed colors. Since 2018, Gamblin has partnered with Ohio University and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources in a job-creating effort to filter polluted water from the Ohio and Mississippi rivers and remove toxic sludge. The sludge, consisting of iron oxides from the Industrial Revolution, is then filtered and turned into limited runs of what Gamblin calls reclaimed colors. A testament to the company's dedication to sustainability and environmental responsibility. Another collection focused on preservation, this time of artworks themselves, with which I am intimately familiar, is their line of conservation colors. A meticulously crafted range of specially formulated paints designed to meet the stringent demands of art conservators worldwide. To learn all about the high-quality standards they uphold, we have to talk to Devin, who is responsible for quality assurance of Gamblin's products.
So Devin, what am I looking at here? This looks like a wall of rainbow.
All of these drawdown cards that you see here are samples of fresh paint that's just come off the mill. It's actually been tubed, but it hasn't left the factory. Once it leaves the mix, they've checked it for accuracy, they've checked their formulas, looks good to them, they give the go-ahead, heads over to the milling station. They're the ones who actually perform these drawdown cards, and then they send them to me. The paint, all on the right side of each of these drawdown cards, that represents the batch from that day. And on the left, we're gonna have our standard, which is the color, the chromatic intensity, the qualities that we've determined that's where we want to hit every time.
What you're doing with these is testing what has just come off of the mill that's in the tube against a known batch to make sure that it's exactly what you want so that there's no discrepancies. So I know Gamblin makes varnish, and I recommend this for artists. I think it's one of the best varnishes out there. But I'm seeing that you also make a brush, and I've never seen this tool before. And on top of that, I'm seeing a whole line of palette knives here with the Gamblin name on them. It seems like you are dipping into multiple pools.
Right, so we wanted to get into supplying a toolkit, equipping the artists with the tools that are going to best support the materials and products we provide.
So you guys are the experts in making these products. It would reason that you are also the experts in how to handle and manipulate these products, and making your own tools, these really beautiful palette knives, ensures that artists are going to be able to use the paint in the best possible way. So I recognize a lot of this stuff. All of these colors I have in my studio. This is really the crux of really what I do in my studio, retouching and conservation. What sets conservation colors aside from oil paint?
So for the artist or viewer not familiar with conservation-based paint, it's a lot different in that instead of linseed oil or safflower oil,
as the binder, right?
The binder is different. We use our Laripol A81 resin in combination with an aromatic solvent, and that basically forms the binder.
Oil oxidizes, becomes permanent, but the resin that you guys use can be reconstituted in the future. So when Julian is having a bad day doing retouching and he comes back the next day and everything looks terrible, he can wipe it all off and start anew without running risk of damaging the painting or anything going wrong. So for conservation, these are invaluable. I mean, there is just no way to do modern conservation without these paints. So I've worked on thousands of paintings, and some of them have been inconsequential, but some of them have been million-dollar works that have ended up in museums. Like, you are making here in this room, Devin, the paints that are going to end up in museums all over the world, on masterpieces from Picasso to Van Gogh to Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, that's gotta be amazing.
It's a privilege.
Yeah.
It's a responsibility to uphold. That's where we set our standards. We expect that when these conservation paints leave the door, they may well be put to use for historical pieces of work, invaluable pieces of work. And so with that responsibility, that's part of the privilege of making these materials.
My first-hand introduction to color making at Gamblin has been an enlightening experience, providing me with a newfound appreciation for the craftsmanship, dedication, and innovation that goes into creating the materials that fuel the passions of countless artists. Gamblin's unwavering dedication to providing artists with the finest materials, coupled with their innovative approach to sustainability and conservation, truly sets them apart. It is clear that in every tube of Gamblin paint, there is not just a vibrant color, but the sum of experience, hard work, and passion that permeates the entire company. Being at Gamblin has left me with a deep admiration for this color house and the incredible family that brings art to life, one tube at a time.